Our next speaker is Michał. You can find him after his talk and ask him about his last name. It's really difficult. So he has studied psychology, but he's actually a long-time developer. And he has experience with different teams and projects, no matter the size. And today he will talk about the psychology. Okay, I cannot say this word. But anyway, he will use his knowledge from university to tell us how he can manage mistakes in teams and projects. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you. Yes, so my last name is Michał Łęcicki, but you don't have to try to pronounce it. And I am a software engineer at Visuality, but I'm going to say more about the psychology today. And before we start, I have a story for you. April 2019, new trend happened in Europe, electric scooters on the streets. Maybe you remember that. And mobile apps, different mobile apps to use them. And I happen to be a developer in one of such startup companies. And you can imagine, the startup needed to grow really fast. We were adding new functionalities every week. New developers were joining our team every week. We were going to new cities and to new markets every month. And the project was hard. It was hard because there was microservice architecture. At the time, we had about 25 microservices, each one written in different language, each one maintained by different team and by developers from different time zone. And of course, the way microservices were communicating with each other were different. To make it even more difficult, we used trunk-based development. It's not the traditional Git flow where you create a pull request, feature branch, and then you merge to the main branch. In the trunk-based development, you commit directly to the main branch. The philosophy is simple. If you waste time for opening a pull request and you are waiting for review, this is a lost opportunity. It's better, especially in startups, it's better to ship your code very fast, and if there is a need, you can fix it later. And the last difficulty, we used Golang, not Ruby, because, you know, Golang is faster than Ruby. So our microservice needed to be fast, right? So at some point, there was a decision that we will go with Golang, not Ruby on Rails. And we are there working on our small microservice and on the feature called automation. And the idea is pretty simple. You need to enable the configuration and put some conditions, and if those conditions are met, something automatically should happen. For example, if a scooter is put in the warehouse in the middle of the night, please turn on the maintenance mode for software update or for another maintenance. So we are working on the feature, and Wednesday, middle of the day, my colleague is creating the final commit. I do a quick code review on his computer screen. He pushes to master, CI is green, so it's deployed to the test server. There are some automatic tests running. It's green, so it's deployed on production. Looks to work, nice. Time to go for lunch. Waiting in the line, we see there is something wrong. Unusual traffic on Slack. Then we see some emails complaining that, well, something is wrong. And at the end, we even get phone calls. What's happening? Turns out that in one of the biggest European cities, in one of the districts, all scooters immediately stopped. Like, immediately. And guess what? It was our microservice. Of course, the issue was mitigated immediately. We left the queue for kebab and went to the office to make a fix, turned off our service and debugged the issue. And of course, it was just one line of code, one if statement. The condition was wrong. And in tests, we couldn't see that because we were mocking dates in tests. So instead of running the automation in the middle of the night, it was invoked in the middle of the day. And the coincidence was that it was exactly right after our deployment. So even though the situation was mitigated, we deployed the fix the same day, and then it worked, the trust client had in our team was lost forever. And the project, well, it was gone soon. Why am I telling you this? Because we all do mistakes. Some of them are big, some of them are small, maybe some of them are hilarious or even tragic, but at some point we all do them. I want to show you in my presentation how to handle that. So let's start with definition. What is a mistake? Well, we all intuitively know what is it. Some unintended behavior. Well, unintended result of your action. Our intention was to run the automation in the middle of the night, but it was run in the middle of the day, a mistake. And when you look at the world and the software world, you know that mistakes happen all the time. For example, last year, CrowdStrike update. When I read about the results of this issue, turned out that about 5,000 flights were cancelled. And lots of hospitals, bank facilities, some different companies, their work was interrupted by a wrong update. Or the mistake can be even more serious. There is tons of research about the medical errors, and in one of the meta-analyses we can read that there is 5% chance that if you go to the hospital, something wrong will happen to you because of the mistake. Nurse mistake, doctor mistake. Or it can be really, really serious. You can dig deeper into the topic of the post office scandal, the biggest scandal in the British government history. They used the software for 20 years for the post offices that were full of bugs, but instead of admitting that and fixing the bugs, they pretended they are not existing. So many people, due to the bugs connected to accounting, lost their jobs. They lost their careers, reputation, and even some of them were put to jail. All of that because of the faulty software. Terrible. But that's not so interesting. Like, we can search for lots of examples that something went wrong. What is really interesting is what happens after we make a mistake. How to handle that situation. The answer to this question was also searched by one of the very famous psychologists, Leon Festinger, in 1950s. He stated that question: what happens when people see that they were wrong? But he took quite a unique approach to that problem. Well, he found cultists. So you can imagine my prompt to AI was cultist in America 1950s. It's obvious, right? So he found a group of cultists. And interestingly, of course, they say, well, apocalypse is going, join our cult and you will be saved. Interestingly, the cult leader said the exact date when it will happen. So Festinger and his team joined the cult, and they wanted to be there on the date when aliens will go and make the apocalypse, saving just a cult. So they were in the middle of the night, and all the cultists were waiting for the apocalypse, but guess what? It didn't happen. The world was not destroyed. And Festinger was observing the reaction of people on that event. So there was a small group of people who had big facepalm. Well, where is my apocalypse? It's not there. Let me just go home. Maybe this whole idea of being a cultist was bad. Maybe I was too naive, maybe a little stupid. Let's forget about that incident. Let me go home. But there was a second group, much, much bigger, including cult leader, who said completely opposite statement. No, we were not wrong. We were right. Even we were more right. We saved the humanity. yes, the apocalypse should happen, but thanks to our efforts, thanks to our prayers, aliens saved the world. So the trust cult members had in the team leader was deepened. And that's what happened is called in the psychology cognitive dissonance, the term introduced by Leon Festinger. And this is exactly this feeling we feel when the reality does not match our expectations. The automation should work, but it didn't. Or apocalypse should happen, but it didn't. And now we somehow need to reduce this mental discomfort because it's discomfort. We don't want this feeling to last long. What we can do? There are basically two choices, and the bad news is that we are doing the decision usually unconsciously. We are doing it automatically. And how we make the decision depends on many factors, and the biggest one is how we were involved in the action that led to a mistake. What's the first option? This is this facepalm group. Well, reality is right. I was stupid, or I made a mistake. I was wrong. Let's adjust my behavior. In the cult example, let me change my behavior. I will no longer pray with cult members, or I will resign from the cult. Or, to make it more realistic, I'm smoking, and I read lots of research that it's very harmful. If I want to reduce the mental discomfort I feel, I can say, all right, I stop smoking. I will try to stop. Of course, it's easier said than done. But there is always the second, more convenient option. We can adjust the reality. No, it's not that I was bad. It wasn't my mistake. No, let's reshape the reality so I don't have to update my beliefs. And this is what the most cultists did. Or like smokers, you can think, well, yes, maybe it's not so healthy, but it has some benefits to me. It helps me reduce stress, for example. And some examples of cognitive dissonance. If you want to dig deeper into this topic, smoking is one of the most popular topics for the cognitive psychologists, because it's very complex how people can explain that they are doing something harmful for them. There will be links to some research at the end of the presentation. But we see cognitive dissonance also in other situations. For example, if you go to the doctor, to the hospital, and the operation wasn't fully successful, the surgery wasn't successful, the doctors usually say, well, some unexpected complications happened. It wasn't my mistake. No, it was the environment or some external factors that influenced the surgery. It wasn't my fault. Or we, as developers, we rarely say, no, writing documentation is boring. My code is self-explanatory. We don't need documentation. Another bad news is if you gain more experience, if you gain more skill, and you are more and more experienced expert, most probably by default you will fall in the second option when you face the cognitive dissonance. Because this mental discomfort is really, really big. Imagine you are an expert software developer with 20 years of experience and you make some silly bug or you make some silly mistake. How you can compare that with the fact that you are an experienced developer? It's much more convenient to say, I wasn't wrong. I just, something unexpected happened. It wasn't me. I didn't have full knowledge. Or maybe it happened on production. I couldn't reproduce it on my machine, etc., etc. Important question. What we can do about it? And this is the moment when I decided to submit my talk to this conference, because in long term, how you resolve the cognitive dissonance becomes important. It influences your decisions, it influences your team, and it influences the culture of your team and your company. So, first idea, growth mindset. This is also the idea introduced by one of the psychologists from the USA, Carol Dweck, and she divided people into two groups. Basically, you have this belief that what you can do, your abilities are either flexible or are fixed. And maybe you think you are born with team leadership skills, or you believe that you can practice them. Or you believe that you are good at math, or you believe that you can improve at math, even if in the primary school you failed at math. And this belief influences how you approach the errors also. You can perceive mistakes as the occasion to learn, and in the growth mindset, you perceive them as the occasion to grow, and you think that they are natural and they help you. But in the fixed mindset, you want to avoid mistakes because it's about you, about your personality, about your fixed abilities. So you want to avoid mistakes. You want to look for easy tasks that won't show that you can make a mistake. Whoops, stop. Also, it influences the mindset, influences how you think about learning and how you think about cooperation with other people. So in fixed mindset, you compare yourself to other people and you think other will judge you. In the growth mindset, you perceive the environment as something that can help you grow, something that can help you learn. All right. Second element, be a scientist. But, So in software development, we are naturally exposed to this first point, which is test your solutions in practice. In Agile, we want to ship fast and see the results, get the feedback from the practice. And the ideal scientist wanted to try it. You want to shape the theory, but then you want to check, you want to validate it against the reality. The second element, if you are a scientist and you have a theory to prove, you are not looking only for the places when your theory works. You are looking for the places when your theory fails to improve the theory. And the last element, it's nice to have a control group. It's obvious when you are a scientist, but it's less obvious in the software development. Still, you can use A/B testing to test different solutions. Or, if you have a big problem that you want to solve, you can divide it into smaller parts and apply different solutions for them and compare them, have a comparison. And the last thing that is especially important if you are a team leader, if you are a CEO of your company, because it influences how you build the culture in your company. You need to make sure that people feel safe about speaking about mistakes. For example, in my company, every week we have a software engineering meeting where we share our experiences from the last week. What we've done, what challenges we had. We share success stories, but we also share failures, the mistakes we made. Because making a mistake and admitting that you made a mistake is not a shame. It's an occasion for others to learn on it. Also, if you want to build your culture in your company, make sure that people don't feel that making a mistake is a threat to them, is a threat to their career. It's okay that you are an expert and you have 10 years of experience, but still you make mistakes. But it's not enough. The second element, make sure to build conclusions out of mistakes. And again, according to some researchers, your learnings from the mistakes must be simple, easy to implement, and easily accessible for people. You made a mistake and you learned on it, but make sure others can also learn on this mistake. And use elements of the two previous steps. So price the effort. Try to build the growth mindset in your team, in your company. Even if the team put lots of effort but didn't succeed, this is still an occasion to appreciate people. They put lots of effort into something. And the last thing, we are used to that, encourage experimenting. So before we finish, April 2019. New trend in Europe, scooters on the streets. You know the story, so I'm not going to repeat it, but 3 difficult elements in the project. Golang, microservices, bad code reviews. Maybe you noticed that when I was describing the story for the first time, I didn't mention much what we did wrong. It was more like the project was difficult. But let's face the truth, we also made lots of mistakes, and some of them were silly. And my clicker works sometimes. So first one, we used the technology we were not familiar with. And also the truth, the client's project is not a place for developers to try new toys. There is a very simple learning. If you are going to deliver working solution, don't experiment. Use the technology you know. Another mistake, we gave up on code reviews. I mentioned that we used trunk-based development, and the main issue with that was lack of pull requests. We were used to check pull requests, and in the trunk-based development, we were checking code only in the separate commits. It didn't give us the enough context how the code should work. And also we were doing code reviews on the colleague machine, not putting enough effort and time for that. So the learning is also very simple. Always care about code quality. Maybe find a tool that will help to do code review only commit by commit. And the last thing, probably the biggest mistake. We didn't know the context of our feature in the whole company. There were lots of microservices, and we could only imagine how our feature impacts others. While we, as a mature developers, should really understand the impact we have on the whole business. That's what I can say, lesson learned. Yeah, so I wish you to be brave enough to admit to mistakes and to see them as a learning opportunity rather than a threat, to embrace the growth mindset, and to be aware that you face cognitive dissonance and you have options how to reduce it. If this topic was somehow interesting to you, I really recommend those 3 books. There will be link in a moment. Black Box Thinking, the book about the mindset, and also mistakes were made. It will help build the culture in your teams. You can go to the link, and there is my presentation, but with notes and the links. And I guess that's it. Thank you.